Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today I want to talk about the linear narrative walking simulator Virginia. Yes, came out not too long ago, September 22nd. It says here. It's been on my radar for a couple weeks. I saw it on I think I got it for I think I paid like $9 for it. And I'm always interested in these kinds of experiments, these kind of narrative experiences that meld games and kind of like a movie or visual novel type deal. It's developed by Variable State. I believe this is their first game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. It's published by 505 Games. It's heavily influenced by 30 Flights of Loving. And if you don't know what that is, 30 Flights of Loving is a game made by Blendo Studios, which is basically Brendan Chung. Uh, they actually just came out with a new game, Quadrilateral Cowboy, which came out, I don't know, a few months ago. But what that game did at the time, it's a completely like silent, no spoken word narrative experience where you just go through. It's all environmental storytelling. It's all like animation. It's all that kind of stuff, like to tell its story. It doesn't hold your hand, and there's no dialogue. There's really not much to read. Everything's really sparse. It's really more just about like tone and music. And Virginia is kind of taking that idea, that concept, taking that ball and really ran with it. Um, it's a really short game, just up front. I think what did I about 2 hours, a little under 2 hours to complete it, and I was taking my time. I was by no means like trying to rush through the game or just get to the end, or like I started like when I started out playing the game I was a lot more trying to go into every door and stuff like that, but it's just not really that kind of game, honestly. There's some few like collectible items you can find that I did stumble across. Like there's some flowers you can pick, there's a few feathers you can pick up. I'm not sure if that actually has anything to do with the story or if it affects the outcome or not. I'm not sure. I have not really looked into this past my experience playing it, so this is just my raw take. It's not. I literally just finished it maybe 15 minutes ago, so I might not even have the most well thought out of opinions. Usually, I end up waiting a day or something, but I just figured I'd talk about it. Because I went through, even in the short period of time that it takes to play it, like I kind of went through like a I don't know, a series of emotions where I was really high on the game. I was really loving it for the first like hour. I think it really does a great job using environmental storytelling, and like just like the lighting and the sound design is incredible. The score is great. And it uses all those things to kind of tell the story with its minimalist animation. It's got a kind of a unique, cool animation style that I really enjoyed. It was cool to kind of just like exist in this version of Virginia, the state. You're in Kingdom, Virginia, and you work for the FBI. You're a newly minted FBI agent just out of the academy, and you are partnered up with this woman, Maria. Oh my God, Halperin, I believe. Yeah, say that, Marie Halperin, and you are trying to solve a missing persons case in Kingdom, Virginia, which is kind of a small little idyllic Virginian town, and it's just kind of more, but it's not really so much about the mystery. That's what movie ends up not kind of being, and that's not a spoiler. It's just more about like the character's personal journey and their kind of this little bit of a psychodrama that's going on with her internally and kind of the struggles. Because not only, and this is all revealed within the first 10 minutes, so it's not a spoiler. But because not only are you on this missing persons case, you're also kind of working in an internal affairs kind of capacity, and you are also investigating your partner, Maria Halperin, for reasons that are not really ever made super clear. Um, it's just like there's just something amiss. There's just something wrong, and it yeah. So I'll talk a little bit more in generalities. I think I might get into some spoilers maybe on the back half, but I will warn you if I when I get into that territory. But just like I said, I thought I was really kind of enjoying it for the first hour. I was really into it. The story kind of takes a little bit of a dip and becomes more nonsensical as it goes. It becomes almost too much just about tone and about emotion rather than like, because there are things that are like the literal things that are happening. Some of that stuff is intriguing. Um, and then there's a lot of like, you're gonna have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, maybe a little bit too much towards the end. That, and then there was just some really like goofy shit. Beyond, I mean, I can't talk about it because that would just it would spoil the whole thing. Because that's the thing about a game like this, you cannot talk about this unless you talk about the story because that is the entirety of the fucking game. But just like before I get into spoilers, just to say up front, like it's not a very expensive game. I think even full price is like $10 or $11. I believe. I don't think it's more than that. I could be wrong. I kind of wish I had gotten the special edition because I believe it comes with the soundtrack. And the soundtrack is great. It's fantastic. It's one of the better like scores. It's like a real score. And the thing about it, you should know going into this is set up like a movie. Like they meant for you to experience this almost like a film. It's like I said, it's about an hour and 45, 2 hours max. And it even says like in the menu screen like play feature. It is not meant to be a traditional game in any way, really. Which is kind of weird that they add like I said, there is like kind of these small collectible things, which I'm not sure if you have to pick them up or not. I ended up doing it, but it seems like I could have picked up more. Like I missed like a couple feathers, um, because every once in a while in the narrative you'll end up back in your apartment and there's like a cork board and like the feathers are on there and it looks like there is room for like two more of them, but I didn't come across them because like something like that. I feel like is weird to add into a game like this because it like gamifies an experience that is otherwise not like that. It's almost like, well, we got to give them something to do. We got to give them something to hunt for because people that play games like that. But like this game is not, or this experience, whatever you want to call it, visual novel is not like it's not trying to get that audience. Um, I do feel like though, I saw a trailer for it like a few weeks, maybe a week ago, on PS4. I ended up buying it on PC, by the way, but like on PS4 a couple weeks ago, and because I had not heard of this. This was not on my radar at all, and that trailer is a little deceiving. Definitely does not really kind of tell you what you're getting into, other than like the tone of it. It tells you the tone, and the tone itself is just very intriguing, and it's not really explaining to you that this is like a narrative game. There is no dialogue. Uh, but I don't know. So like buyer beware. But like my general opinion about stuff like this is it's $10, $10, $11, even at like $15. I'd say it's probably worth it. I mean, I pay that much for movies on a regular basis, whether I buy them or I just go to the fucking theater. I mean, just for one ticket, it's like $12, $13 just to go to a movie in the theater, anyways. So that's the kind of way. That's like what I think about when I like with these kind of games and talking like value proposition. I always just think of that. It's kind of like sits in the same family as like Dear Esther. Has more in common with Dear Esther than it does with like say another recent one would be like Firewatch. And I talked about Firewatch when it first came out because I was looking forward to that. Like I just find these things to be intriguing, and I want to see what developers and what people are doing to try to take advantage of the game medium. I think this one does a pretty decent job of taking, even though it's pretty linear, like it did feel like you do kind of embody the character for a while. But there is a threshold. I think the story itself just kind of starts falling apart towards the end. Like the last act is not great. It doesn't stick the landing. And it becomes alienating almost. Because a few like kind of social points that they're making, which is, I'm not saying that you can't make them, but they come off a little goofy. They come off a little like current year, I guess I would say. Just to memify my opinion here. But yeah, I'd give it a tepid recommend if you're interested. And if you're willing, you don't mind paying $10, $15 for like linear narrative experience, then I'd say give it a go. Like, even though maybe the ending is ultimately disappointing, I think it's actually kind of a interesting enough of an experience, and well executed enough that I can definitely recommend it. I did not love it. Did not love it though. But like that's the thing with these games. Like they're not as cut and dry as a regular video game where we can talk objectively about mechanics. We can objectively talk like, oh, is the battle system good? Is the AI good? Like, it's not how these games are. So you kind of judge them. I judge them a little differently. Because if I were to judge it mechanically, I'd be like, oh, well, it's a little sluggish and you move very slowly. Limited interaction, not a lot to do. So getting into the spoiler side of the things, I guess I can just kind of talk about the end of the game. Like I said, you're like working in internal affairs kind of capacity, investigating your partner, and you kind of think you know where it's going, and then it kind of just starts losing the thread a little bit because it's very direct, especially with your partner, and you find out that like, her mother or her grandmother, I believe it's implied that it's like her mother, was also in the FBI, and she also had problems, and a lot of those problems have to do with like her being a black woman in the 60s in the FBI, and like, if you're not aware, other outside of just the general racism, I guess that was more prevalent in the United States at the time, the FBI headed by J. Edgar Hoover was just very outwardly racist, and they did have people of color, black people and whatnot in the FBI, but it's never been really clear if that was like tokenism or to use these people in a infiltration capacity. Like it was always it's always a weird thing because J. Edgar Hoover is like was an outspoken racist, so I've never heard anything that really explained that why he would kind of be okay, or maybe he wasn't okay like with like black people and stuff like that being in the FBI. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's something I'm ignorant. I'm not an expert in history or anything, so don't quote me there on any of that information I just told you. I could be totally wrong. So it kind of takes it from that angle that maybe like there was some kind of oppression going on, and then you kind of learn a little bit about Marie herself, and then you kind of find out that she a little bit of a rebel, and in the terms of like socially rebellious. Like you go to her house, there's a lot of like environmental storytelling, which is this game's bread and butter. Like you go to her house and you get actually a sense of who this person is. And if there's something I could also just like commend the game for, it does a really good job of environmental storytelling. Even if it's just kind of like some of the more tertiary characters, you learn a lot about them by just like the way their houses are or their rooms, like their offices, like they keep their offices. Even like the player character, and I believe her name is like they do like the hard boiled detective shortcut where it's like she has an apartment and she hasn't fully unpacked. That means she's got no time for unpacking. She's obsessive about her job. Which is something that just kind of makes me giggle. Like anytime you see like a hard nosed like detective FBI guy or girl, like it's always that they have an apartment and they have not unpacked. They've been there for 6 months. They haven't unpacked a damn thing. they're too dedicated to justice. Be bothered with finding a place for all this Tupperware. What else can I say? Like I said, it kind of falls apart at the end. Like it starts like because there's this like I said in the non-spoiler part. There's kind of a psychodrama aspect where you're inside your character's head, your player character's head. So there's like a lot of dream scenes and whatnot that kind of deals with her subconscious, and is dealing with like the case that they're working on, but also her life and how she feels about herself and how she feels about her role in the FBI. And like I said, when you don't know if it's a dream sequence or not. You're not totally sure. It never really settles towards the end what is really happening and what is not. I suppose it's easy to get lost. I kind of think it was a dream sequence. I'm pretty sure it's like kind of showing this alternate route. There's a a time. Like, I guess you guys, you get both get put in jail for some. I guess that's literally happening. But then again, I don't know. And you basically like you knock on the door and you basically like seems like you just turned Marie in. You have this information and you just kind of screw her over, and then it shows you moving up through the ranks of the FBI. But to do so, you have to screw over people, and all of them happen to be minorities. So I don't know if that's like a message or not. But it was the goofy one that kind of made me laugh because there was like a very obvious like friendly Muslim guy that you're like you pull up you have a desk in the bullpit with, and he has a big smile and he just like waves. And then he shows up to your house. Like, then people show up to your house because it's kind of like a vignette sequence. Then people show up to your house, like, and you got a poker table set up, and you go and answer the door, and he's the one like right in front, like waving with that friendly smile. So it just kind of made me laugh a little bit, just because current year politics or whatever, social politics. Because so I'm assuming it was like intentional. You do end up screwing over a white guy, but he's the last person there, and then I don't know. So I'm not sure. I guess I don't want to try to be a psychic and like assign meaning to things that if I don't really know. Not that it would matter if they were. If they were trying to make a point, like I don't really care. I guess I should be clear about that. Like I don't really give a shit. Like that's good for you. Like it just didn't. It seemed like it just became very on the nose. There's also some symbolism that I wasn't quite like. Didn't have a firm grasp on. I'm also sick and I've been taking cold medicine, so maybe that's why. Maybe my head's a little groggy. There's like a buffalo and some type of bird that I'm a sparrow or something. What the fuck is it? No, red herring. Which it's a mystery story. I get it. I get it, yo. But there's some stuff in there, and there's some good stuff in there, and like I said, like the environmental storytelling and the way for that first hour, it's like really, really does a great job of like building the mystery, and even with the psychodrama stuff, it just kind of adds another layer to it, almost like you're this detective not only dealing with like the moral implications maybe of like investigating this woman, but also of like you as a detective like putting the pieces together. So there were some cool moments there that serve the narrative. And it kind of stops doing that, like, towards the end. I guess maybe because they were just like, oh, the mystery doesn't really matter, and it's really about the struggle of these, like, women of color, like, in this kind of machine. Maybe that's what, like, the kind of, really the point they were trying to drive home. But maybe they just kind of like start too late with that, and then it has to be so on the nose that it's just more goofy than poignant. And that's me. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I tend to be overcritical with stuff when it comes to I don't know what's the right term for it, like messaging, symbolism, whatever you want to call it. Like I really don't really care for things that are super on the nose. I kind of like not to be vague. Like you can be clear what you're doing, but like maybe don't like just yell it at me. I guess I like it's because it's such a fine line you got to walk. As storytellers, like what they're trying to accomplish, and not like proselytize in a weird way. Like I cannot stand people like telling me how I should feel about something. And goes back to like me as a kid, and like my psychological makeup. Some of that comes like I was raised Catholic, and I was raised like super Catholic, so I went to Catholic schools and used to have to go to church every Sunday, and I really hated it. I never liked it. Yeah, even as a child, like I absolutely fucking despised. Not just like having to go to church because I didn't want to wake up on Sunday. I just hated everything about it. I hated the culture. I hated the mechanics of it. Like I just didn't like. I'm talking about church like it's a video game, but I just never liked it. Never got on board. Some of the worst people I've ever met are Catholics or call themselves Catholics. So that definitely like leaves like so I definitely have a chip on my shoulder for stuff that's like trying to preach to me. Like how I should feel about things. I'm the type of person I like given like all the information and the full context, and then just let me make my decision for better or worse. I'm obviously now I'm getting way off on a tangent, but like I'm always open to hear other people's opinions, other people's perspectives. Don't get me wrong, but like I really don't like somebody just being like, "This is what's right and this is what you should believe." Like it just always bothers me. And so when stories kind of engage in that stuff, it kind of makes me check out a little bit. Now, I will say though, I don't think this game does a good job of even really doing that towards the end. I think it just becomes very disjointed, and I like I was listening to a podcast, and that's what reminded me about the game that I wanted to check it out. That like they're like, well, maybe it requires a replay, because it's a short thing. It's like watching a movie. So if you were kind of liked it, maybe you would replay it like you would watch a movie, and that may be true. There might have been some subtleties, some nuance that I missed that would have helped make the last act of the game kind of go down smoother. That's totally possible. Totally possible. I don't know though. I mean, there's a lot of threads that the game kind of like picks up like, and then kind of just doesn't do anything with. And that's just kind of disappointed me a little bit, I suppose. But, like I said, overall, I would give it like kind of a tepid recommendation. I would not say like don't buy it. Like if you are at all interested in these types of narrative experiences, I don't think you're going to be super disappointed. And I think the price is right. Like around 10, $12 or whatever it is. Like I think the price is right for what Virginia offers. And I don't think you're going to be super disappointed in that. Like from a value proposition. Like it's interesting enough. It's interesting enough to check it out because, like I said, there are some really great moments. There's some really great use of environmental storytelling, and like it does a great job of consistently setting a tone, and the score is great. Like the way the cool art style, the visuals, it all works together. It's got kind of a Lynchian, like a David Lynch kind of Twin Peaksy kind of vibe, which seems like the go-to thing nowadays for people of my age. Like I'm not even old enough to really have been like around when Twin Peaks was like a thing or be cognizant of it, but like I came to it later and I'm a big fan now. But it seems like there's a lot of people in that boat. Like we all found Twin Peaks when we were like 19, and now we're all big Twin Peaks fans. But yeah. So overall it was okay. Like I said, if you're into this kind of thing, maybe give it a try. Alright, everybody, I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you guys next time I got something to talk about.